Okay, so you almost certainly have this in your kitchen. You know, that warm, amazing spice you sprinkle on your oatmeal or into your coffee? Well, it turns out it has a wild history. Cinnamon is actually one of the oldest spices we know about. I mean, back in ancient Egypt, this stuff was so valuable it was considered a gift fit for kings. No joke. But, beyond that incredible history and the fact that it just tastes great, what's the real story here? That's what we're going to do today. We're putting this ancient spice under a modern microscope to figure out what the science actually has to say. It's time to separate the facts from the hype.
So what is it about this, simple tree bark that has scientists so interested? Well, to figure that out, we've got to start by looking at the chemistry.
Well, it turns out that scientists believe most of cinnamon's power, all that good stuff, really comes down to one single compound. It's called cinnamaldehyde. And yeah, this is the molecule that gives cinnamon its signature smell and taste. You could say it's basically the hero of our story today. But hang on, before we go any further, there's something really important you need to know. Not all cinnamon is created equal. Not even close. See, there are two main types. You've got Ceylon, which is often called true cinnamon, and then there's Cassia. Now, the one you probably have in your pantry, odds are it's Cassia. It's way more common and a lot cheaper. And trust me, this difference is going to be a huge deal later on. All right, so we've got our hero compound, cinnamaldehyde, and we know there are two different types of cinnamon. So now let's dig in and see what happens when we look at the actual hard data. And just so we're clear, we're not talking about a couple of small, flimsy studies here. Nope. The evidence we're about to dive into comes from something called a meta-analysis. Think of it like the scientific gold standard. It's where researchers take a whole bunch of high-quality clinical trials and then combine all of their results into one massive study. It's pretty much the best way we have to get a clear, super reliable picture of what's going on.
So with all that said, what does all this top-tier evidence actually show us? All right, let's get to the good stuff. These scientifically supported health benefits.
Okay, so one of the biggest, most well-researched effects is what cinnamon does for blood sugar. It's really consistent across the board. Multiple huge reviews confirm that taking cinnamon, usually somewhere between 1 to 6 grams a day, can lead to a significant drop in fasting blood sugar levels. And it seems to work by helping reduce insulin resistance, which basically makes your body's own insulin work a lot more efficiently. And the benefits don't just stop at blood sugar. They actually extend to your heart health too. I mean, these same massive reviews show that cinnamon can improve a bunch of key risk factors for heart disease. We're talking about lowering things like triglycerides and LDL, that's the bad cholesterol, while at the same time, it can actually give a little boost to your HDL, which is the good cholesterol. But wait, there's more. Seriously, the science shows that cinnamon is just absolutely loaded with powerful antioxidants. They're so powerful, in fact, that cinnamon can be used as a natural food preservative. It's wild. And those same compounds also give it some pretty potent anti-inflammatory properties. Plus, some studies are showing it might even help lower blood pressure if you take it consistently. Okay, and this is where the research gets really, really interesting, like cutting edge. In lab settings and in animal studies, scientists have found that certain compounds in cinnamon might actually stop the buildup of a protein called tau in the brain. And that's a huge deal because these tau tangles are one of the main things we see in Alzheimer's disease. Now, I have to be super clear here, this is very early research. It has not been confirmed in humans yet, but wow, is it a promising area for scientists to explore. All right, so we've just gone over a ton of really promising benefits. It sounds amazing, right? But remember that tale of two cinnamons I mentioned a little while ago? Well, this is where that story takes a very, very critical turn. The plot twist in our cinnamon story has a name. It's a compound called coumarin. And the thing about coumarin is that in high doses, it can actually be harmful to your liver. And here's the kicker. The amount of this stuff you'll find in your cinnamon depends entirely on which type you're using. And this is the part you really need to hear. Cassia cinnamon, the super common, inexpensive kind you find in almost every grocery store, is absolutely packed with coumarin. In fact, just a single teaspoon of cassia cinnamon could potentially be enough to push you right over the daily tolerable intake limit. Now, in complete contrast, Ceylon cinnamon, or true cinnamon, is so much safer. And we're not just saying that. A quote from the German Federal Institute for Risk Assessment makes it crystal clear. They state that Ceylon cinnamon contains hardly any coumarin. So yeah, that makes it a much, much better choice if you're planning on using it regularly. Okay, so after all of that, what's the bottom line? What's the takeaway here? How can you actually use this information to safely and effectively bring cinnamon into your life? It's pretty straightforward, really. Think of it as a simple three-step guide. First things first, if you're going to use it regularly or take it as a supplement, choose Ceylon cinnamon. That's how you avoid the high coumarin levels in cassia. Second, the dose that seems to work in most studies is somewhere between 1 and 6 grams a day. To give you an idea, that's roughly half a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons. And third, and this one is so important, please remember that cinnamon is a powerful supplement, but it is not a magic cure-all.
Look, when you boil it all down, the science is incredibly promising. It really does point to some significant benefits for things like your blood sugar and heart health. But it is so vital to see cinnamon for what it is, a powerful tool that you can add to an already healthy lifestyle, not something that can magically replace one. It's pretty amazing when you think about it, isn't it? How this one spice has gone from being an ancient treasure for kings to a scientifically backed superfood. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other powerful secrets are just hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered, right in our own spice racks?